On the dusty banks of the Orontes River in 1274 BCE, Egyptian and Hittite chariots slam into each other in a storm of dust, shouting, and splintered wood. The Battle of Kadesh has begun, one of the largest chariot battles in all of ancient history. At the center of the action is Pharaoh Ramses II, standing in his war chariot, wearing the blue battle crown. Bow drawn, he drives his horses straight toward the enemy near Kadesh, determined to turn disaster into glory. From the Hittite side, massive three-man heavy chariots thunder toward the Egyptian camp. Their huge wheels and armored horses churn up the desert plain as they aim to smash through Ramses's unprepared forces. Egypt responds with two-man light chariots, smaller, faster, more maneuverable. Egyptian archers fire on the move, circling the heavier Hittite vehicles and peppering them with arrows. From above, the battlefield looks like a swirling maze, Egyptian divisions scattered and confused, while a great wave of Hittite chariots drives across the plain. Standards and dust clouds mark where lines are holding and where they are collapsing. The Orontes River curves around the fortified city of Kadesh like a protective arm, while on the plain nearby, chariots clash under fluttering banners. Terrain, water, and walls all shape the deadly dance of this battle. Inside the Egyptian camp, soldiers suddenly find Hittite chariots bursting through thin lines of defense. Tents collapse, baggage wagons overturn, and panic and shouting fill the air as the camp turns into a battlefield. Amid the chaos, Ramses II stands tall in his chariot, surrounded by swirling enemies. Later, Egyptian art will show him larger than life, a single heroic figure fighting off thousands. Outside Kadesh, the ground is quickly carpeted with broken chariots, fallen shields, and overturned wagons. This ultra-violent scene is the true cost behind all the royal boasting and temple inscriptions. As fresh Egyptian forces finally arrive, Hittite chariot crews begin retreating back toward the walls of Kadesh. Dust clouds rise as they race for safety, chased by the counterattacking Egyptians. Here is Ramses II in full battle regalia, blue crown, ornate scale armor, and a stern, youthful face. This is how he wanted to be remembered, an idealized warrior king, fearless in the chariot. Watching from a safer distance is Hittite king Muwatalli II, standing in his own chariot, surrounded by guards. Behind him, the city of Kadesh reminds him what is at stake: control over Syria and the vital trade routes it commands. Egyptian officers wearing leopard skin cloaks and holding decorated staffs shout orders, trying to reform broken lines. In the middle of shock and confusion, they struggle to pull scattered men back into fighting shape. A standard-bearer lifts high the banner of the Amun division, a tall pole topped with sacred symbols. Even in the dust and danger, that banner gives soldiers a point to rally around. On a battlefield map, we can see the four Egyptian divisions, Amun, Ra, Ptah, and Set, spread out and scattered around Kadesh. This separation is one reason the Hittite ambush hits so hard. Hittite infantry stand in a solid defensive line behind wooden shields, spears branched against the ground. As Egyptian chariots approach, they prepare to turn open-field chaos into a stubborn stand. Close to Ramses's chariot is his royal bodyguard unit, armored more richly than ordinary soldiers. Their entire purpose is simple: keep the pharaoh alive no matter how bad the battle gets. Hittite nobles ride in richly decorated chariots, wearing distinctive conical helmets and layered skirts. Elite warriors, they are the spearhead of the Hittite attack and the pride of their king. Between the lines, we imagine two champions, one Egyptian, one Hittite, dueling on foot among the chariots. Spears and shields clash in a personal echo of the larger struggle engulfing them. Elsewhere on the line, dense formations of Egyptian infantry advance in close order, bronze weapons gleaming, banners fluttering. Behind the glamour of chariots, it is these infantrymen who must hold the ground. Before the battle, the long Egyptian column marched north through Syria, chariots, infantry, and pack donkeys stretching across the landscape. Under a blazing sun, Ramses pushed his army deep into contested territory. Riding in his marching chariot, Ramses listened as captured Hittite spies lied to his face, claiming the main Hittite army was far away. Confident in this false intelligence, he pushed forward less cautiously than he should have. Two supposed deserters knelt before the pharaoh, pretending to defect while secretly serving Muwatalli's plan. Their careful lies helped lure the Egyptians into a vulnerable position. In a field strategy council, generals and scribes gathered around a map showing the Orontes River and the city of Kadesh. They believed they were ahead of the enemy, when in reality, the Hittites were already in place. Egyptian scouts galloped ahead of the column, scanning the horizon, but with Hittites cleverly concealed, even good scouting couldn't fully pierce the deception. On a dusty road, the Ra division stretched out and vulnerable, marching with little idea that the main Hittite force was dangerously close. They were about to walk straight into an ambush. Farther back, porters carried supplies and dismantled chariot parts along rough tracks towards Kadesh, struggling to keep pace with the army advancing faster and deeper into enemy land. At the end of long marching days, camp scenes showed tired soldiers and horses resting while chariots were checked and repaired. The calm of evening hid the storm that was forming ahead. Suddenly, Egyptian messengers began racing between divisional camps with urgent warnings. Reports of Hittite forces nearby shattered the earlier sense of security. From the rear, we see the Egyptian army finally approaching the area of Kadesh, its fortified outline visible beyond the Orontes. But their divisions are spread out, and the enemy is ready. Hidden behind hills and patches of woodland near Kadesh, a powerful Hittite chariot force lies in wait. They are perfectly positioned to slam into the unsuspecting Ra division. In an instant, Hittite chariots launch their charge, crashing into the surprised Egyptians of the Ra division. Dust explodes into the air as the ambush tears through the unprepared column. Egyptian soldiers of Ra scatter in panic as the heavy Hittite chariots roll straight through their ranks. Men, horses, and equipment are thrown into deadly confusion. Survivors of the Ra division flee toward Ramesses' camp, with relentless Hittite chariots thundering after them. The panic they bring with them threatens to infect the rest of the army. Ramesses' own camp, full of tents, baggage wagons, and tethered horses, is suddenly overrun by these invading Hittite chariots. What was a place of rest becomes a death trap. Egyptian soldiers scramble for weapons as Hittites smash through camp defenses. Tents collapse, supply wagons overturn, and the lines between front and rear vanish. But in this chaos, Hittite chariots begin to bog down among tents, wagons, and bodies. Their tight formations break apart, and their great advantage in speed and impact begins to fade. Ramesses II rushes from his tent, quickly mounting his chariot as the enemy bursts into view. He realizes that if he doesn't act immediately, the entire campaign could be lost. Responding to emergency commands, Egyptian soldiers form a makeshift defensive ring around the royal camp. Shields lock together, spears jut outward. They brace themselves for the storm. Around them, camp servants, scribes, and non-combatants run in all directions, trying to escape the deadly melee. The battle has swallowed everyone, whether they came to fight or not. Ramesses II drives his chariot straight into a cluster of Hittite vehicles, depicted in later art as a lone hero surrounded by enemies. Whether or not it happened exactly this way, this is the image Egypt wanted to remember. In close-up, we see Ramesses drawing his bow again and again, firing into the mass of Hittite chariots around him. Each shot symbolizes courage under impossible pressure. Egyptian chariots rally around their pharaoh, turning scattered defenders into a focused counterattack. The center of chaos becomes the center of resistance. Hittite charioteers, expecting an easy victory, now look shocked as the Egyptian counterattack slams into their disordered ranks. The ambushers find themselves suddenly on the defensive. Horses rear and chariots collide in all directions as the tide of battle shifts. Dust, screams, and crashing wood fill a cinematic, highly detailed tableau of ancient war. Later, Egyptian scribes will claim that Ramesses single-handedly defeated thousands of enemies. Even if it's stylized exaggeration, it reveals how vital this moment was to his image. Then, salvation. The Naren reinforcements, Egyptian or allied troops, arrive on the battlefield with banners flying. Their timely entrance helps turn a near disaster into a stalemate or even a limited success. Fresh Egyptian units charge into exhausted Hittite chariots, driving them back toward the river and the city. The ambush that nearly destroyed Egypt now begins to crumble. Hittite chariots try to withdraw across the Orontes, some vehicles tipping, wheels breaking, or sinking in the water. Retreat becomes as dangerous as the attack itself. In organized pursuit, Ramesses' chariots push the Hittites away from the camp and the field, securing at least partial control of the battlefield. The immediate crisis is over, but the war for the narrative has just begun. We pull back to a wide view of Kadesh itself, perched on a raised mound, double walls and towers dominating the Orontes. It remains a formidable fortress even after the chaos below. A stylized battlefield map shows Kadesh, the curve of the Orontes, the Egyptian camp, and the Hittite positions. This gives us the strategic overview ancient commanders had to imagine in their minds. Egyptian tents and chariots spread along the riverbank, with Kadesh's silhouette dark against the sky. For Ramesses, the city is both an objective and a stubborn obstacle. The Orontes River gleams in the sunlight, reeds along its banks, soldiers and horses kneeling to drink before and after fighting. This waterway shapes the movement of men and machines more than any general's order. After the worst of the battle, Hittite troops withdraw behind the gates of Kadesh, using the city as temporary refuge. They have not been destroyed, and they still hold the fortress. Egyptian scouts watch Kadesh from a distance, noting strong walls, moats, and well-defended gates. Any direct assault would be costly and uncertain. As the sun sets over Kadesh and the Orontes, the sounds of battle slowly fade. In their place come moans of the wounded and the quiet clatter of armor being removed. Thin columns of smoke rise from burned tents and shattered equipment on parts of the plain. The battlefield bears scars that will take days, if not years, to erase. Birds circle overhead as Egyptian soldiers begin to regroup and count losses. Behind every number in a royal inscription lie real men who did not return. As night falls, campfires dot the valley around Kadesh, while the city itself stands dark and silent. Both sides hold their positions, claiming enough success to avoid total defeat. In the Egyptian camp, scribes start writing the official version. Ramesses has achieved a great and glorious victory at Kadesh. The near disaster is reframed as proof of heroic courage. Meanwhile, Hittite scribes in their own camp note that their army still controls the city and was not destroyed. From their viewpoint, they have held off Egypt and protected their sphere of influence. Ramesses speaks forcefully to his officers, defending his decisions during the campaign. He emphasizes his personal bravery and the role of the gods in saving Egypt. Around a map of Kadesh, Egyptian generals debate whether to continue the fight or withdraw. With supplies stretched and Kadesh still standing, pressing the attack looks risky. On the field, Egyptian soldiers bury the dead, friend and foe alike, and gather abandoned weapons. This grim work is the quiet follow-up to every loud, glorious battle. Inside Kadesh, Hittite warriors tend to their wounded, tired but still defiant. They know they have survived Egypt's spear thrust, and that counts for something. An Egyptian herald proclaims Ramesses' quote, victory to the assembled troops, focusing on how they repelled the ambush and drove back the enemy. Morale must be preserved regardless of the complex truth. Among the ranks, expressions are mixed: relief at being alive, sadness for lost comrades, and confusion about what the campaign truly achieved. For many, glory feels far away from the blood-stained ground. Soon, a caravan of Egyptian wagons begins leaving the Kadesh area, loaded with whatever spoils and supplies they can take. The army has decided it is time to go home. In the distance, Kadesh still stands as the Egyptian columns march south. Neither side won a clear victory, but neither side can publicly admit that. 71 through 80. Temples, the poem of Pentar, and the manufactured memory. Back in Egypt, the colossal facade of Abu Simbel rises from a cliff, dominated by giant seated statues of Ramesses II. These stone giants will guard the king's reputation for millennia. On the walls of Abu Simbel, a relief shows the Battle of Kadesh in dramatic style. Ramesses charging his enemies alone in his chariot. The king becomes the hero of an almost mythic story. Close up, we see chariot battle scenes carved in low relief, horses, archers, and fallen foes frozen in stylized Egyptian art. Every line reinforces the message of royal bravery. Lines of hieroglyphic text flow above and below the pictures, part of the poem of Pentar that praises Ramesses. In this poem, he is abandoned by his troops, but saved by his courage and the god Amun. At the Ramesseum, his mortuary temple, nearly identical scenes of Kadesh are carved again and again. Repetition makes sure no one forgets which pharaoh fought this famous battle. Artists toil on scaffolding, carving and painting battle scenes under the eyes of royal officials. Art, religion, and propaganda blend seamlessly together on these walls. The scribe Pentar is shown writing the poetic account of Kadesh, his papyrus scroll unrolling as he composes. His words transform a messy, indecisive battle into a clean narrative of heroism. Priests recite the Kadesh poem loud during ceremonies, glorifying Ramesses as a warrior favored by the gods. The official story becomes part of Egypt's sacred storytelling. In a modern museum, visitors read a translated panel of the poem of Pentar next to the original hieroglyphs. They see clearly how strongly the story leans towards Ramesses' version of events. Artistic reconstructions imagine the Kadesh reliefs and texts as they looked when new, brightly painted, sharp, and overwhelming. In their prime, these were not ruins, they were powerful tools of persuasion. 81 through 90. The Peace Treaty and a New Kind of Diplomacy. Years after the battle, Egyptian and Hittite envoys meet under a canopy in neutral territory. Both sides are weary of war, and the balance of power has settled into a stalemate. In symbolic scenes, Hittite king Hattusili III and Ramesses II are shown shaking hands, representing a hard-won peace. Enemies on the battlefield become partners in stability. One version of the Egyptian-Hittite treaty survives as a clay tablet in cuneiform script. It lists terms of mutual defense and non-aggression, an early example of international law. In Egypt, the same treaty is carved in hieroglyphics on temple walls, neatly arranged in columns. The text proclaims friendship, alliance, and shared commitments. Scribes from both sides work carefully on matching copies, checking that wording and promises are the same. For once, precision in words is as important as victory with weapons. A formal ceremony of exchanging royal gifts seals the peace between Egypt and Hatti. Gold, fine goods, and promises replace spears and chariots, for a time. Later, a Hittite princess is brought to Egypt as part of a marriage alliance with Ramesses II. Her richly dressed entourage symbolizes a new era of diplomacy instead of direct conflict. In temple reliefs, the treaty text is celebrated as one of the world's earliest known international peace agreements. Kadesh is remembered not only for battle, but for the peace that followed. Modern drawings compare the original treaty tablet with the carved Egyptian version, showing how the same deal spoke in two different scripts. Together, they remind us that there are always at least two sides to history. In a museum display case, replicas of the Hittite-Egyptian treaty stand labeled as the Kadesh Peace Treaty. Scholars and visitors alike see it as a milestone in the long, difficult history of making peace. 91 through 100. Modern Archaeology, Teaching, and Legacy. Today, a modern aerial photo of the Kadesh region near the Tel Nebi Mend in Syria shows quiet fields and a winding river. It is hard to imagine that this peaceful landscape once echoed with thousands of chariots. Archaeologists survey the suspected battlefield using maps, GPS devices, and satellite imagery to match texts to terrain. They search for physical traces of a battle described mostly by propaganda. In an excavation trench, layers of ancient walls and artifacts emerge near the likely site of Kadesh. Each find adds a small piece to a very old puzzle. A close-up shows a fragment of chariot fitting or weapon carefully held in gloved hands. These objects might have once rattled across the field under the hooves of war horses. In a modern classroom, a teacher uses a projector to show maps and temple reliefs while explaining the Battle of Kadesh. Students see how written sources, art, and archaeology must be combined to approach the truth. An educational poster titled Battle of Kadesh, Egypt versus Hittites 1274 BCE summarizes the key facts and images. It turns a complex and contested event into something that can be learned at a glance. A history book page compares Egyptian and Hittite accounts of Kadesh, highlighting contradictions and bias. We learn not just what happened, but how people choose to tell what happened. A split-screen image places Ramesses in his chariot from temple reliefs next to a modern diagram of troop movements. Artistic myth and analytical reconstruction stand side by side. Concept art combines Ramesses, Hittite chariots, the Orontes River, and the treaty tablet into one collage. It captures the full story, from sudden ambush to negotiated peace. Finally, an epic cinematic poster labeled Battle of Kadesh 1274 BCE shows Ramesses II, Hittite forces, and the city under stormy skies. It reminds us that Kadesh was not a simple victory or defeat, but a dramatic turning point where war, propaganda, and diplomacy collided.